All right, I'm Eric Weglarz along with Scott Myerson and Andrew Janes here at Linden State College, and we are tracking Hurricane Sandy and its potential impacts here in the Northeast from basically Maine all the way down to New Jersey. So for our first slide here, we have confidence and timing. Right now we are at 70% confidence rating, and the reason we say this, more importantly, is we're still, a good 6 to 8 days out basically in this scenario. So there's still a lot of more model runs to go through here, and more flip-flopping. The GFS tends to do this a lot. They'll flip-flop, and it'll go one way, it'll go the other way, and it'll go every which way. So we're still looking at that right now. And again, as we get closer, we'll see the NAM come back into play here. We'll be able to see, where exactly all of this falls in here. So looking at potential impacts, and we'll all go through this, take one at a time here. I'll start off here. We have major coastal flooding. I mean, seas should be not as high as 100 feet like a perfect storm of 91, but very high seas at the time of this. So if you're going to go out in the waters, don't do that at all. We're looking at that.
We can also see some beach erosion as the waves pushing the sand into banks up against the coastline.
Definitely a very high chance of substantial power outages, just like last year around this time from the snowstorm.
Oh yeah.
So expect to have power outages basically for a long time.
And to go hand in hand here, we have substantial wind damage too. We're expecting winds, we'll convert this from knots to miles per hour here. We're looking anywhere from 88 knots to 100 knots, which is about 90 to 120. And Scott might disagree with me on that. He might say go higher or lower.
Lower.
He's thinking lower. So we'll get to that in a minute when we look at the models. But definitely strong winds, nevertheless, that will impact the Northeast as a whole.
Depending on the track and location of Sandy, we could see some pretty high flash and river flooding because tropical systems have lots of moisture.
Correct.
So we can see a lot of rain in a short amount of time.
And you can never rule out isolated tornadoes.
Never will isolated tornadoes, even as these things do come ashore. All right, so we'll check out Hurricane Sandy as of right now. This is the satellite, and if you see right in here, right down there, I think it's Jamaica actually, to the southeast of that, there's a little bit of an eye there. And off into the eastern part, you do see some drier working. However, we have an eye wall that's forming right before it makes land on Jamaica. So, not really good for Jamaicans. However, the storm's still healthy as much as we could tell from earlier today as it gained some steam there. And, we'll take away at the 5-day forecast track here from the NHC. Scott, what do you make of it?
Okay, so as it makes its way into Jamaica to Category 1 hurricane, as it makes its way through Jamaica, it should weaken back to a tropical storm. And then it will head into Cuba, and then after Cuba it will remain tropical storm for a few days, and then by Thursday it should be down to a post-tropical storm as it makes its way up to the eastern coastline.
And to define a post-tropical storm, some people might think that's a lesser than what it actually could be. A post-tropical storm is when it basically loses all of its rotation, not really rotation, but becomes asymmetrical. So all the rain and all the wind will go to one side or another, and everything will spread out. So when you say post-tropical, don't think of it as a lesser storm. It still can pack a powerful punch, especially with the rain and the windfall here. But take a look at the forecast models. Andrew, this is the latest from this morning. It hasn't really changed too much, but your take on this one especially.
You got most of the model runs going out to sea, but you have this outlier right here that takes it right into southern New Jersey, and that could be a worst case scenario right there, because that would probably still be tropical storm strength right there.
And this one up here, I believe that is the GFS. I mean, the tropical models have flip-flop back and forth. You don't really regard this too much as the exact track. The one we're talking about into New Jersey, that's the GFDO. And that popped up, I believe, either last night or early this morning. Scott's shaking his head like, I have no idea. I think it was this morning. And this is the GFS Global Forecasting System, and it's an ensemble spread. And you might think this is a little confusing, but we'll try to break it down for you here. 75% of this that we were looking at this morning was going towards the northeast, anywhere from northern Virginia to Maryland, all the way up into portions of Maine. And 25% of those going out to sea. And this is promising for all of us, storm chasers and people that want the storm to come ashore. The GFS was keeping everything out to sea, and now it's back inland. So I mean, is this will it flip-flop back again? What do you think? What are your takes on it?
I think this is a pretty solid solution that it will stick with right up to the storm. Right now, as we have more data available, we know where blocking location is, and that should keep this pretty steady as far as the forecast goes.
And as we go to our models here, we can point out some of the blocking here. This is the European model, or the ECMWF forecast hour. Sorry, it's 72 hours, and Scott's itching to explain this one. So Scott, take it away.
So as you can see, we'll talk about the blocking right now. There's a low pressure, 991 millibars east of Newfoundland. That's going to prevent Sandy, which is shown to be a 971 tropical storm just east of Florida. It's going to prevent that from really escaping up to sea.
And we'll flip it to 96 hours.
As you can see, it has strengthened to 966 on this model, and it's still making its way up the coastline. Now it's making its way
past North Carolina and Virginia there.
Yes,
basically riding the shoreline.
Yeah, kind of like Irene did actually. It rode the shoreline. It isn't really making landfall. As you see, the eyes just offshore.
But it's still strengthening it and not. But as you can see, these are the pressures, and you can start to see it's starting to expand a little bit. It's starting to show some post-tropical characteristics as it moves into colder waters. It's starting to lose its real tropical characteristics.
And the wind fields, though, are expanding. Even as we go into landfall here, as we take a look at that, 962 millibars, and that's just one of the solutions here. It looks pretty grim. I mean, even it looks like Connecticut, Long Island, and parts of New York are really going to get hit by this one. And we'll go to the CMC. This is the Canadian. Oh,
no, that's not the Canadian.
I'm in the wrong one there. Hold on a second. There we go. We're going to the Canadian model, and this one is run by the Canadians, the Canadian Meteorological Center, and Scott,
basically showing a very strong 946 millibar low, right over Boston, Massachusetts. If this were to verify, coastal flooding would be devastating. There would be lots of beach erosion, flash flooding, major wind damage.
Loss of lives.
Maybe.
We'll hope that doesn't really happen right now. But again, nothing to really rule out. People have to be prepared for this. If this solution pans out on the Canadian model, this is a pretty big storm to go through here. And now we have the global forecasting system in their model runs.
The Canadian model actually has support. Now has support from the GFS. Once the GFS was showing mostly the sea solutions, now the new 12Z run as of today, October 24th, it is showing it actually making landfall in New England as you can move forward.
All right, so we have the 144 hours. We go over to 156. You see, it's up actually in the Gulf of Maine.
It's a little bit further north than the Canadian model. A little weaker, but it's still showing a pretty major hit in New England.
As we go through, what we call a scenario retrograde, where it combines the trough, at the post-tropical cycle as it moves up, combines the trough and then moves back inland. And even it's past the Gulf of Maine here, it moves inland, and usually you would think systems like this would weaken as they come over inland.
Will. This is probably
we're still
overdone. Yeah, it's probably overdone. I think by now it would probably be a 980 millibar storm as it makes its way over the Green and White Mountains. It should tear it up a bit, so it should weaken.
Now, before we stop this video here, let's go back and talk about the major scenarios. People don't really know. Some people don't really know what exactly is going to happen here. I've been people saying, oh, 3 feet of snow, 3 feet of rain. Try to clear this up for people. This is a storm you can't take lightly. This is in some cases worse than Hurricane Irene as it came up the coast in parts of New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, and Rhode Island, Maine, you name it. You can't take this lightly. The winds, I think, will be, I would say, a little bit worse even than Irene.
With the blocking in place, this storm will be a lot slower to move out. With Irene, Irene just moved right on through.
Slingshotted right up.
But with this storm, it's kind of retrograding westward, and usually tropical storms actually move south to north usually. But this thing might just stick around for a long time and just keep causing damage.
And that brings up another good point too. I mean, flooding is going to be
potential for 20 plus inches of rain.
20 inches of rain in rivers is going to cause major river flooding. No matter if you're in the Connecticut River, the Hudson River in New York, no matter what river you are. You go up into the mountains too, where most of these rain bands will come off the mountains and stay there as they can't get really over the mountains. This becomes a huge problem for not only mountain areas, but in the valleys too. Valleys going to fill very quickly. So if you're in a valley too, this is something you have to watch out for. If we get this storm with 20 plus inches coming, you can't stay in the valley. You're going to have to leave. You're going to have to go to higher ground when this comes.
For the New York metro city area, if you were to get 20 inches of rain, the subways would flood, and then there'd be ridiculous amount of storm surge. You would not want to be in there with all that flooding. So I wouldn't want to stay in New York City if this verifies.
This is one of these things you have to be careful for. You know, people are very skeptical. You know, people, you know, a little bit afraid. You know, I don't want to lose my house. This isn't, you know, so much wind that's going to knock over your house. This is more, you know, a loss of power, substantial loss of power. It's, you know, Connecticut, unfortunately, you're going to be in for round 2 if this hits. New York, Massachusetts, you guys have seen this before with Irene. It's going to be the same thing, if not a little bit worse. So, you know, as we go through this, we'll have more videos as this gets closer and as we get closer to a, you know, a substantial, you know, solution as to what happens here. You know, what's your best advice for people when trying to determine what to do as we get closer
Pay
to this?
attention to your local meteorologist. Do not take them whatever they say lightly, and take any warnings or watches extremely.
Take any early precautions as this, you know, storm is. Our confidence level right now is about a 70% chance.
Which is very high this far out.
So start thinking about, you know, maybe evacuation plans if the storm comes over your house. Start contacting your old elderly relatives.
Charge all your electronics.
Right before it comes, if this does hit. Yeah, very good idea. So with that, we will sign off for now. We'll be back later this evening or tomorrow, depending on when conditions warrant for this. And with that, again, I'm Eric Weglarz along with Andrew James and Scott Myerson from London State.
Thank you.
And this is your latest model run.